Everyone, let's take a look at section 2.2. We'll continue looking at this section and investigate zero coupon bonds. So if you don't remember what a zero coupon bond is, well, it's a bond that pays no coupons over its maturity. So that's no periodic payments being made. And in this case, we need to figure out the implied interest rate of a zero coupon bond. So that interest rate is just going to be the difference between the beginning and ending balance of the year to year. So first, as usual, we want to set up a bit of a table here. So we'll start with our par value. Okay, then we're going to have our years to maturity. And then we want to understand the number of periods, okay? And remember, in this case, we're dealing with semi-annual, so let's write that down just to remind ourselves. What's also important is the year, or the yield to maturity. What percent yield are we going to be using? Okay, so if you remember, our rate is going to be our yield to maturity divided by M, so our number of periods. And of course, our price is important to determine, otherwise known as our present value. And remember, our par value is our future value. All right, so par value, well, they give us that. It's $1,000 par value. And our years to maturity, so it's going to be a little bit different than we're used to, but we're actually going to start, and if you think of it as in terms of a timeline, we're going to start like this, something like that, okay? So when we're looking at it in terms of years to maturity, when we start here, we're going to have 5 years to maturity because we're beginning, then 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, finally 1 year. And actually we'll have 0 years technically, okay? So when we start, we're actually going to have 5 years to maturity. And we're basically going to go all the way down until 0, okay? So that's what our table is going to look like. Now, in terms of the number of actual periods, okay, now even though we're not paying out, we still need to understand the number of periods. So this is a semi-annual pricing convention, okay? So these are, we need to convert that into semi-annual. So again, if you remember, semi-annual means we're paying out, or there's 2 periods in that yearly timeline, okay? So if we have 5 years to maturity, that means we still have 10 periods, okay? And so forth. And eventually we'll get to 0, basically meaning that the bond, or in this case, pardon me, yeah, it's a bond, the zero coupon bond has matured. Now, yield to maturity, we've got the yield to maturity rate of 12%, but remember that is the annual rate. So we have to convert that 12% into a semi-annual. So again, so years to maturity, our yield to maturity is our 12%, but we have to divide that by 2 because it's semi-annual, okay? So we're going to divide that, keep that consistent. And now we can figure out our price. Okay, so we're going to use our present value function. And we have our rate, so it's been adjusted appropriately. So is our number of periods. There are no payments because, again, remember, this is a zero coupon bond, so we're not receiving any payments throughout the period. Our future value, and again, we'll continue it with 0. Okay? So that's the price of the bond that's worth after year 1. Okay, and we can go down, and you can see basically because there's no more years of interest accumulated, that price is going to be equal to the future value because it's pretty much at the same time. Okay, so think of it as we're meeting that future value at the end. Let's assume that this arrow goes a little bit further. Okay, so now that we have our prices, okay, but what we're actually trying to understand or calculate is we're looking for the actual interest. Okay, that's the implied interest. So this is our price. Okay, and remember, this is the price of the end of year 1, and this is the price at the beginning of year 2. Okay, so if we actually take the difference between the end of year 1 and the beginning of year 2, that will give us our implied interest. Okay, so that's basically the gain that we've had based off of interest. Okay, so if we want to continue, we'll simply bring this down. And we'll finish things off here, so you can see the last year's interest is $110. All right, thanks for watching and happy financing.